2011 report by the Center for Arts Education said that in New York City alone, between 2009 and 2010, there was a 5% decrease in arts educators. So there is definitely a need for this. In fact, according to a study by Education Next, they discuss the specific benefits of arts education. They say, quote, enriching field trips contribute to the development of students into civilized young men and women who possess more knowledge about art, have stronger critical thinking skills, exhibit increased historical empathy, display higher levels of tolerance, and have a greater taste for consuming art and culture. Now, while this means for arts education is decreasing, we need to increase our involvement in this issue. In fact, according to a 2013 study called Learning to Think Critically, researchers took a group of students who were in an experimental group and took them to a museum, while the control group of students, these are elementary school students, did not go to museum. And afterwards they tested their abilities. And specifically they found that the students in the experimental group had a 9% increase in their critical thinking skills. They were better able to observe, interpret, analyze, think flexibly. In fact, students who had never even been to a museum before, they showed to have a 17% increase, 17% in their critical thinking skills. Now these skills are essential. These are things that you don't just get from a classroom. These are things that you can take for life, to be an individual, a grown-up, who is a thinking person. Now, how can we satisfy this educational intellectual need? Well, on the one hand, there is a strong counterargument saying that we need to invest funds into the core subjects, math, science, English, history. But when you look at statistics, such as the previous study, which says that in students 3rd through 8th grade, their critical thinking skills increased by 11%, 11%, that's astounding. You have to take that into consideration. These are fundamental intellectual and educational skills. One agency that lobbies for arts education is the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies. They work with the government, they work with private entrepreneurs and with schools. And they work to show that arts is an educational asset and that they want to leverage funds towards specific states' individual needs for arts. And they encourage investments in arts. Each state has its own agency, and this is a very important organization. So how can we imagine our world today if we can take on this initiative? How would our world be? Well, we could picture an educational system in which the arts is held in high esteem. We can picture a society in which kids will stop on the street, think, go to museums, analyze. And we can picture a time where field trips are not just about entertainment purposes, but are rather educational skills for life. We can make a better future for our children, our nieces, our nephews. But what specifically can you do to help? Well, obviously recognizing this need and understanding, yes, there are budget cuts, but understanding on the other hand that we can gain very important critical skills for life. And knowing that there are organizations out there, such as NASSA, that can help us to take on our own initiatives. Specifically, we can donate money to this organization, NASSA or NASA. We can campaign for them. Even something as small as being involved in your school's educational board, where that way you can voice your opinion and you can propose solutions and you can talk about it and engage in a conversation. This painting was done by my niece Sarah when she was in kindergarten. It's called Flowers in the House by Sarah Monet. So I think this is an excellent example of her school taking on the initiative to educate even kindergarteners about art. I think that this is a great way to engage students on a way that they're going to relate to. And lastly, I'd like to end with a short story. My nephew Gabriel one time came to my room and he saw a painting on my wall and he said, "Jordy, Is that a Syrah? Well, what he was referring to was a painting on my wall which had a lot of dots on it. And I don't know if you're too familiar, but George Seurat is very famous for his pointillist style, which means using dots. All these dots, if you zoom in, you'll see it's not paint strokes, but dots that compose this painting. And I just was amazed that he knew that. He was in first grade at the time, and I kind of chuckled. But on the other hand, how amazing would it be if in the future we can expect our children to ask these types of questions and engage in this? I would want my niece and my nephew to continue learning about arts so that one day they can continue to develop these important skills, these educational, intellectual skills for life. Thank you.